We have been reporting, we're sad to report, and many of his friends and admirers around the country are sad to hear of the death of Elliot Richardson, former Secretary of Defense, a former Attorney General in the Nixon administration in 1973. He resigned. Students of Watergate certainly remember, rather than obey President Nixon's command to fire the Watergate Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox. Mr. Richardson was 79. Now, just in case you haven't been with us for some or all of the day, we've asked ABC's Bob Brown to put together, I guess what you'd call at home, a highlight reel of some of what's been going on around the world.
Past the midnights, toward the dawns, through what people feared might happen and what they hoped would, this has been a day of spectacle in which all the world was a stage. As New York City raised the crystal ball, it will drop at midnight. A human conductor led a virtual orchestra with a laser baton, a virtuoso feat of the kind of technology that has defined the end of this millennium. But the fire of old-fashioned enterprise has also played a prominent role. After all, the South Pacific island nation of Kiribati had the international dateline reconfigured so that it would be the first to celebrate the new millennium. Kiribati had seen heavy casualties during World War II when U.S. troops drove out Japanese forces.
My dear child, take this torch of peace and hope from Kiribati so that it may light the whole world.
An old man and a boy headed out to sea in the direction of the next midnight, while dancers chanted a goodbye to the pain of the past in a ceremony of good luck. How quickly things seemed to move after that. In Auckland, New Zealand, the first city that might have experienced a millennium bug, there were no reported problems, only a giant celebration, although it will take much longer to assess what's really happened to the world's computers. And among the midnight theatrics, often staged around familiar landmarks, the Sydney, Australia Opera House offered a performance unlike any that had been seen there before. Dancers representing sea creatures from the harbor roamed the roof as 1 million people watched. China, one of the countries that gave fireworks to the rest of the world, had an impressive display of its own in Shanghai. But officials anxious to dispel concerns that the country could be a Y2K disaster kept its airlines flying past midnight to engender confidence. And in Beijing, the official celebration that started at midnight ended at 12:08. Far away from this performance of a national traditional music troupe in Seoul, Korea, others went up to the demilitarized zone where no photograph signs were posted to hang messages on barbed wire wishing for peace with the North. God, please let these reunions happen, said one. The same hopes for peace in a different area of the world were represented in a joint concert between singers in Dublin, Ireland, and Derry, Northern Ireland. And evidence that hopes can be reached was on Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela spent most of his 26 years in prison before becoming president of South Africa. So many symbols of the past century were lit by their celebrations. Moscow, the capital of a nation which came into being in revolution, became a superpower, then dissolved in disarray. Despite terrible problems, Moscow celebrated in style. But on the Horn of Africa, territory over which the superpowers once struggled, ABC's Jim Wooten found silence.
Going from midnight in Moscow to midnight in Ali Ade, just listen. There's not a sound here. 11,000 refugees from Somalia have gone to bed.
In Bethlehem, thousands of Christian pilgrims were gathered in the town where Jesus was born, celebrating despite fears of terrorism. From the streets of India, filled with unbridled celebrations, to the stunning views of the Acropolis in Greece, a masterpiece before we began counting these last 2 millennia, the visual feast got better and better. Half the world has seen the millennium come now. and the rest has been revving up for it in unprecedented ways. One of the most impressive took place in Leipzig, Germany, with mime and music spilling into the streets. There was so much to look at today, it boggled the senses. A trip around the world that Jules Verne could barely have imagined. Soon to arrive here at home.
One more chance this century to hear Ode to Joy, which has been played. We've looked at the world with such a sense of awe today. This is one more chance to see some, or at least one, of the 11 different Ferris wheels, or wheels, they like to call them, ferry wheels, that they have put up through Paris, all of which are extraordinarily conceptual, some of which play music, some of which have dancers on them. These are just artistic Ferris wheels. No one is going to be able to ride them, unlike that great Ferris wheel that has been built on the Thames in London, everybody taking their cue from the Chicago Exposition in 1893, of course, and the American invention of the Ferris wheel. But here in Paris, there are these extraordinary demonstrations of technology which bring together in one place some of the technology we have witnessed around the world today. 11 different ferry wheels, as we said, up and down these various parts of Paris, reminding us of how extraordinary this fascination is with technology as we go into the 21st century. It is just as it was as we entered the 20th century. We'll continue in just a moment.
This is ABC 2000, the celebration of the millennium. Brought to you by VhsVcr, where life is our life's work. And by Autotrader.com, the biggest, best used car site on the planet.